Welcome to the Bible quiz on the Book of Esther. How much do you know about the life and Book of Esther, a book about God's divine plan? This Bible quiz will test your knowledge and deepen your understanding of the book. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with your friends and family. Together, let's spread the gospel and inspire others with the lessons from Esther's story. Please, don't forget to drop your comments below. We'd love to hear how many questions you got right. Are you ready? Let's get started. Question 1. Who was the king of Persia during the events of the Book of Esther? Was it A. Nebuchadnezzar, B. Darius, C. or D. Artaxerxes? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. Ahasuerus from Esther 1:1. King Ahasuerus ruled over a vast Persian empire, stretching from India to Ethiopia. His reign sets the stage for Esther's story, showing how God can work through rulers to fulfill his plans. Even in a foreign land, God's sovereignty is evident. Question 2. What was the name of the queen who refused to appear before King Ahasuerus when summoned? Was it A. Vashti, B. Esther, C. Zeresh, or D. Miriam? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is A. Vashti, found in Esther 1:12. Queen Vashti's refusal to obey the king led to her being removed, which opened the way for Esther to become queen. This teaches us that God can use even difficult situations for his purposes. Question 3. How was Esther chosen to become the new queen of Persia? Was it A. by family lineage, B. by royal decree, C. through a beauty contest, or D. through marriage? You have 10 seconds. The answer is C. through a beauty contest from Esther 2 verse 2 to 3. Esther's selection may seem unlikely, but God used it to position her to save her people. This reminds us that God can work through any situation to accomplish his purpose. Question 4. What was Esther's Hebrew name? Was it A. Vashti, B. Hadassah, C. Zeresh, or D. Abigail? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. Hadassah, as stated in Esther 2:7. Esther's Hebrew name, Hadassah, symbolizes her heritage and reminds us that God can use anyone, no matter their background, for his purpose. Question 5. Who is Esther's cousin who raised her? Was it A. Haman, B. Mordecai, C. Haggai, or D. Zeresh? You've got 10 seconds to think it over. The answer is B. Mordecai from Esther 2 verse 7. Mordecai raised Esther after her parents died and provided guidance that helped shape her future actions. This shows the power of mentorship and the impact of faithfulness in others' lives. Question 6. What did Mordecai discover that saved the king's life? Was it A. a plot to kill the queen, B. a plot to steal from the palace, C. a plot to assassinate the king, or D. a plot to invade Persia? You have 10 seconds. The answer is C. a plot to assassinate the king from Esther 2:21 to 22. Mordecai's discovery and intervention were crucial, and it later played a key role in saving his own life, teaching us that integrity and loyalty are always rewarded by God. Question 7. Who was Haman and what position did he hold? Was it A. a palace guard, B. the king's advisor, C. the queen's servant, or D. a foreign merchant? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B, the king's advisor from Esther 3:1. Haman held a high position but let pride and hatred cloud his judgment. His story shows the dangers of misusing power and how God's justice prevails over prideful schemes. Question 8. Why did Haman become angry with Mordecai? Was it A, Mordecai refused to bow to him, B, Mordecai stole from him, C, Mordecai insulted him, or D, Mordecai spread lies about him? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is A, Mordecai refused to bow to him, from Esther 3:5. Mordecai's decision reflects his commitment to his faith, showing us the importance of standing firm in our beliefs, even when it brings opposition. Question 9. What was Haman's plan to destroy the Jews? Was it A, he planned a secret rebellion, B, he manipulated the king into signing a decree, C, he accused the Jews of treason, or D, he bribed the soldiers? You have 10 seconds. The answer is B. He manipulated the king into signing a decree to kill all Jews, as seen in Esther 3:9. Haman's pride led him to plan against the Jews, but God turned his plans for evil into good, reminding us of his sovereignty and justice. Question 10. What did Mordecai do when he heard about Haman's decree? Was it A, he fled to another city, B, he fasted, mourned, and wore sackcloth, C, he confronted the king directly, or D, he celebrated? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. He fasted, mourned, and wore sackcloth, from Esther 4:1. Mordecai's response was one of humility and trust in God, showing us that in times of crisis, we should turn to God in prayer and faith. Question 11. What did Mordecai ask Esther to do in response to the decree against the Jews? Was it A, to hide the Jews, B, to speak to the king on behalf of the Jews, C, to flee the palace, or D, to bribe Haman? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B, to speak to the king on behalf of the Jews, from Esther 4:8. Mordecai urged Esther to use her position to intercede for her people, teaching us that God places us in situations for a reason, and we should act with courage when called upon. Question 12. What was Esther's initial response to Mordecai's request? Was it A, she agreed immediately, B, she was afraid because she had not been called to the king, C, she refused to help, or D, she sought counsel from Haman? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. She was afraid because she had not been called to the king, from Esther 4:11. Approaching the king uninvited could mean death, but Esther's story shows that God gives us courage, even when obedience is risky. Question 13. What famous statement did Mordecai make to Esther to encourage her to act? Was it A, for such a time as this, B, God will destroy the enemy, C, the king will listen to you, or D, you will be protected? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is A, for such a time as this, from Esther 4:14. Mordecai's words remind us that God often places us in positions of influence for his purpose, and we should be ready to seize those moments for his kingdom. Question 14. What did Esther request the Jewish people do before she went to see the king? Was it A, prepare for battle, B, fast and pray for 3 days, C. Pay Haman for mercy, or D. Hide from the king? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. Fast and pray for 3 days, as recorded in Esther 4:16. Esther's request for prayer and fasting shows her dependence on God's guidance, teaching us to seek God's help in difficult decisions. Question 15. What was Esther's famous declaration of courage before approaching the king? Was it A. God will save me, B. I will find favor, C. If I perish, I perish, or D. The king will protect me? You've got 10 seconds. Question 15. What was Esther's famous declaration of courage before approaching the king? Was it A. God will save me, B. I will find favor, C. If I perish, I perish, or D. The king will protect me? You've got 10 seconds. Question 16. How did King Ahasuerus respond when Esther approached him uninvited? Was it A. He ignored her, B. He was angry, C. He held out the golden scepter, or D. He ordered her execution? You have 10 seconds. The answer is C. He held out the golden scepter, from Esther 5:2. This act showed Esther had found favor with the king, reminding us that when we step out in faith, God provides grace and opens doors. Question 17. What did Esther request when the king asked her what she desired? Was it A. half of the kingdom, B. a banquet with the king and Haman, C. Haman's death, or D. protection for the Jews? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. A banquet with the king and Haman, as stated in Esther 5:4. Esther's wisdom in approaching her request gradually shows us the importance of careful planning and patience when handling delicate matters. Question 18. What did Haman build to Mordecai executed? Was it A. a prison, B. a gallows, C. a palace, or D. a throne? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. a gallows, from Esther 5:14. Haman's pride and hatred led him to build a gallows for Mordecai, but God's justice turned his plans back on him, reminding us that pride often leads to a downfall. Question 19. What event caused the king to remember Mordecai's earlier act of loyalty? Was it A. a dream, B. the reading of the royal chronicles, C. Esther's banquet, or D. a message from Haman? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. The reading of the royal chronicles, from Esther 6:1. God's timing is perfect. This reminder at just the right moment shows that God never forgets acts of faithfulness and rewards them in His time. Question 20. How did the king honor Mordecai for saving his life? Was it A. He gave him riches, B. He made him a royal advisor, C. He had him paraded through the streets in royal robes, or D. He gave him land? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. He had him paraded through the streets in royal robes, from Esther 6:8-9. This public honor teaches us that God exalts the humble, often in ways that surprise us and others. Question 21. Who was ordered to lead Mordecai through the streets in honor? Was it A. Esther, B. Haman, C. Zeresh, or D. the king? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. Haman, from Esther 6:10-11. Haman's own pride led to his humiliation, reminding us that God can turn the plans of the wicked against them. Question 22. What did Esther reveal at the second banquet with the king and Haman? Was it A. her true identity as a Jew, B. her desire to leave the palace, C. that Haman was plotting against the king, or D. that she was from a foreign land? You have 10 seconds. The answer is A. her true identity as a Jew, from Esther 7:3-4. Esther's courage to reveal her identity and plead for her people shows us the importance of honesty and standing up for justice. Question 23. How did the king react when he learned of Haman's plot against the Jews? Was it A. he supported Haman, B. he was enraged, C. he dismissed it, or D. he fled? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. He was enraged, from Esther 7:7. The king's anger shows that God can expose and bring down those who plot evil, turning their schemes back on them. Question 24. How was Haman punished for his plot against the Jews? Was it A. he was imprisoned, B. he was exiled, C. he was hanged on the gallows he built for Mordecai, or D. he was banished from the kingdom? You have 10 seconds. The answer is C. He was hanged on the gallows he built for Mordecai, from Esther 7:10. This teaches us that God's justice prevails, and those who seek harm often face the consequences of their actions. Question 25. What did the king give to Mordecai after Haman's death? Was it A. Haman's position and wealth, B. a house in the countryside, C. a royal banquet, or D. a new set of laws? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is A. Haman's position and wealth, from Esther 8:2. Mordecai's rise to power shows that God honors those who act with integrity and faithfulness. Question 26. What did the king allow Esther and Mordecai to do after Haman's plot was exposed? Was it A. write a new decree to protect the Jews, B. build a new palace, C. flee to another land, or D. punish the Persians? You have 10 seconds. The answer is A. Write a new decree to protect the Jews, from Esther 8:8. God not only delivers his people, but empowers them to stand strong, showing that his deliverance is complete. Question 27. What did the new decree allow the Jews to do? Was it A. flee to another country, B. fight back against their enemies, C. build a new temple, or D. collect taxes? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. Fight back against their enemies, from Esther 8:11. This shows that God empowers his people to protect themselves and ensures they have the resources needed to stand firm in times of trial. Question 28. What celebration commemorates the Jews' deliverance from Haman's plot? Was it A. Passover, B. Purim, C. Hanukkah, or D. Yom Kippur? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. Purim, from Esther 9:26. Purim is a celebration of God's deliverance, reminding us to give thanks and remember his protection over our lives. Question 29. What was the result of the Jews defending themselves against their enemies? Was it A. they were defeated, B. They were victorious and gained peace. C. They were exiled. Or D. They made a treaty with their enemies. You have 10 seconds. The answer is B. They were victorious and gained peace from Esther 9:16. This victory highlights God's provision for his people and the power of unity when facing opposition. Question 30. What happened to Mordecai after the Jews were delivered? Was it A. He was promoted to second in rank to the king, B. He returned to his village, C. He was exiled, or D. He became a priest? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is A. He was promoted to second in rank to the king from Esther 10:3. Mordecai's leadership after the victory demonstrates that God often rewards the faithful with positions of influence for the good of others. Question 31. What role did Esther play in saving the Jewish people? Was it A. She led an army, B. She interceded with the king to save her people, C. She became a judge, or D. She wrote new laws? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. She interceded with the king to save her people. From Esther 7:3-4. Esther's willingness to risk her life for her people shows us the importance of intercession and standing up for justice. Question 32. How did Mordecai demonstrate loyalty to the king before the events of Haman's plot? Was it A. By serving as a guard, B. By exposing a plot to assassinate the king, C. By leading the king's army, or D. By giving the king a gift? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. By exposing a plot to assassinate the king from Esther 2:22. Mordecai's loyalty was eventually rewarded, reminding us that acts of integrity will not go unnoticed by God. Question 33. What is the significance of Esther's Jewish identity being hidden for part of the story? Was it A. It caused confusion, B. It made her a target, C. It was part of God's plan to protect her and her people, or D. It led to her downfall? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. It was part of God's plan to protect her and her people. From Esther 2:10. This strategic concealment reminds us that God's timing is perfect, and he often works in ways we don't initially understand. Question 34. What did Haman's wife Zeresh suggest when Haman was frustrated with Mordecai? Was it A. to seek peace with Mordecai, B. to build gallows to hang Mordecai, C. to leave the city, or D. to write a letter to the king? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. To build gallows to hang Mordecai, from Esther 5:14. Zeresh's advice led to Haman's downfall, teaching us that revenge and pride ultimately lead to ruin. Question 35. How did the Jews react when the new decree allowed them to defend themselves? Was it A. They were fearful, B. They celebrated and prepared to fight, C. They fled the country, or D. They ignored it? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. They celebrated and prepared to fight, from Esther 8:16-17. Their response of joy and preparation demonstrates faith in God's provision and the power of unity in facing challenges. Question 36. How long did the Jews celebrate their victory and deliverance during Purim? Was it A, 1 day, B, 2 days, C, 3 days, or D, 1 week? You have 10 seconds. The answer is B, 2 days, from Esther 9:21-22. Purim became a joyful remembrance of God's deliverance, teaching us to celebrate and remember God's faithfulness. Question 37. What were the Jews instructed to do during the celebration of Purim? Was it A, fast and pray, B, feast, rejoice, and give gifts, C, build a new temple, or D, mourn for the dead? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B, feast, rejoice, and give gifts, from Esther 9:22. This celebration of God's goodness reminds us to share our blessings with others and give thanks for His deliverance. Question 38. How does the Book of Esther show God's providence, even though His name is not mentioned? Was it A, through the victories in battle, B, through the weather, C, through the timing of events and the deliverance of the Jews, or D, through dreams and visions? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C, through the timing of events and the deliverance of the Jews. The story of Esther shows that God works behind the scenes, guiding events for His purpose, even when His presence isn't overtly visible. Question 39. What was the ultimate fate of Haman's sons? Was it A, they fled the city, B, they were promoted to officials, C, they were hanged, or D, they were exiled? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. They were hanged, from Esther 9:13-14. This act marked the final defeat of Haman's household, teaching us that the consequences of wickedness often extend beyond the individual. Question 40. What is one of the key themes of the Book of Esther? Was it A, revenge, B, redemption and deliverance, C, war and conquest, or D, personal ambition? You have 10 seconds. The answer is B, redemption and deliverance. Esther's story highlights God's faithfulness in delivering His people, reminding us that even in dark times, God's purpose and deliverance are constant. Question 41. What was the significance of casting lots pour in the story of Esther? Was it A, it was a game, B, it was a method of choosing a king, C, it determined the date of the Jews' destruction, or D, it was a religious ritual? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. It determined the date of the Jews' destruction, from Esther 3 verse 7. The casting of lots ultimately became a celebration of deliverance, showing that God's plans overcome those of our enemies. Question 42. What happened to the enemies of the Jews on the day Haman had intended for their destruction? Was it A, they destroyed the Jews, B, they fled, C, they were defeated by the Jews, or D, they were protected by the king? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. They were defeated by the Jews, from Esther 9:5. God gave the Jews victory over their enemies, teaching us that even when the enemy plots against us, God brings triumph. Question 43. How does Esther's story emphasize the importance of courage? Was it A, it shows that courage is not necessary, B, it highlights Esther's fear and inaction, C, It demonstrates that Esther's courage saved her people, or D, it downplays the need for bravery? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. It demonstrates that Esther's courage saved her people. Esther's bravery shows us the importance of stepping forward in faith, even in fearful situations. Question 44. What lesson can we learn from Mordecai's refusal to bow to Haman? Was it A, the importance of defying authority, B, the significance of pride, C, the importance of standing firm in one's faith and values, or D, the need for revenge? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C. The importance of standing firm in one's faith and values, from Esther 3:2. Mordecai's example teaches us that God honors those who remain steadfast in their convictions, even when faced with opposition. Question 45. How did Esther's beauty and position as queen serve a greater purpose in God's plan? Was it A, they brought her wealth, B, they allowed her to gain personal power, C, they positioned her to save her people, or D, they led to her downfall? You have 10 seconds. The answer is C. They positioned her to save her people, from Esther 2:17. God uses our gifts and circumstances for His purpose, reminding us that our roles can serve His greater plan. Question 46. What can we learn from the way Esther approached King Ahasuerus with her request? Was it A, she was impulsive, B, she carefully planned her approach, C, she was indecisive, or D, she ignored advice? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. She carefully planned her approach. Esther's patience and wisdom in timing her request show us that sometimes careful planning and waiting on God's timing are essential. Question 47. What was the significance of the golden scepter in Esther's story? Was it A, it symbolized authority, B, it represented punishment, C, it was a symbol of peace, or D, it signified the king's favor and allowed Esther to speak? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is D. It signified the king's favor and allowed Esther to speak, from Esther 5:2. The scepter symbolizes God's grace and favor when we approach Him in faith. Question 48. How did Mordecai demonstrate his leadership after Haman's death? Was it A, he led the Jews to war, B, he worked for the welfare of his people, C, he built a new temple, or D, he became king? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is B. He worked for the welfare of his people, from Esther 10:3. Mordecai's actions reflect true leadership, showing that serving others and seeking the common good are marks of a godly leader. Question 49. What was the purpose of the Feast of Purim that was established after the Jews' victory? Was it A, to remember the defeat of their enemies, B, to celebrate the king's reign, C, to honor Haman, or D, to celebrate God's deliverance and remember the events of the story? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is D. To celebrate God's deliverance and remember the events of the story, from Esther 9:28. Purim serves as a reminder of God's protection and the importance of gratitude. Question 50. What does the Book of Esther teach about God's sovereignty and his ability to work through human events? Was it A, that God is distant? B, that God does not intervene in human affairs? C, that God is sovereign and works behind the scenes to fulfill his purposes? Or D, that humans are in control of their own fate? You've got 10 seconds. The answer is C, that God is sovereign and works behind the scenes to fulfill his purposes. Though God's name isn't mentioned in Esther, his hand is evident, guiding events for his glory and our good. Wow! Thank you so much for joining us in this Bible quiz. We really appreciate your participation. How did you do? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your score and what you enjoyed most. Your comments also help us to get better. Please make sure to subscribe to propagate the gospel, like this video to show your support, and share it with friends and family to spread the word. Don't forget to leave a comment about topics you'd love to see next. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you in the next quiz.